Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary peoples. I'm going to try to get this this content out as early as possible today, so that you guys have as much of the day as possible to put in waiver claims. Because I know that traditionally I've done it at night, because I wanted to get my own waiver claims in first, and because I worked during the day. But the pleasure, one of the benefits of working when I want to, is I can do this in the morning now, if I so choose, which I probably will. I think that's probably going to be the best way to do it moving forward. And also, I have nothing else to do right now because I'm waiting for my car to get its brakes fixed. Les Schwab was pretty busy this morning. They haven't even looked at it yet. It's been sitting there for about an hour. They haven't even looked at it yet, because if they looked at it, they'd have called me by now, which I'm hoping they don't call me in the middle of filming this. That's a possibility they could do that. I think this video is going to run a little long because I got 15 waiver pickups for you here in week 2, and then I also want to start doing this kind of thing where I briefly talk about some things from week 1 that I noticed good and bad. So we'll see how it works. This will be an experimental video today because I don't want to do 2 separate videos for it. I feel like during football season I put out enough content. I don't want to be filming an extra video per week. I'm just going to try to combine them here. Do less talking about myself on waiver wire video days, and more talking just strictly football. So without further ado, I don't really have a whole lot to say so far today anyway, because it's early, and I already told you I'm waiting on my car to get its brakes fixed. So let's get to the 15 waiver wire pickups. Me personally, I don't like to make a lot of moves after week 1. I'm a little bit more patient, even though I'm not a patient person. I'm a little bit more patient with the players that I drafted, the teams I drafted, than maybe some other people, barring injury. If there's a major injury, such as we have Dak Prescott, we have Chris Godwin, 2 major injuries to deal with this week, and I do have both of those players on my team. I'm obviously going to make a move to replace them on my roster if I have the IR space available to do that, because I'm not dropping either of those guys. Shoot, I completely lost my train of thought. I'll be moving them to the IR and picking up another player to replace them on my roster. Obviously, I'm not the kind of person that's going to carry an empty spot on a bench. I just think there's too much of a strategic advantage to having an IR and using it properly to do that. So, but I mean, unless I'm streaming defenses. So injury or I'm streaming defenses, that's really the only moves I'll make after week 2. Let's see, the 15 waiver wire pickups. We're going to break it down by position like I always do. So quarterback, tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs. We'll talk defense, special teams tomorrow, because you shouldn't burn a waiver claim on defense, special teams, and then kickers, of course, as always, are irrelevant. So you just want to stream kickers, fine. Pick your guy. I don't care enough to talk about kickers. Let's do it. Quarterbacks. I got one for you. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has always been a good fantasy quarterback, even last year with the Colts, even though he didn't look the best. He actually wasn't even that bad, really, statistically, for the Colts last year. It just something didn't click in the locker room there. So Carson Wentz is now with the Commanders. 4 touchdown passes in week 1. It does look like he has a pretty good batch of weapons to work with in his wide receiver core this year. So Carson Wentz, dare I say, Carson Wentz could be a top 10 fantasy quarterback if he stays healthy. So Carson Wentz is someone to consider adding, especially if all the guys, the obvious names are not available in your league and you are looking to replace Dak Prescott this year. Carson Wentz is probably going to be definitely my recommendation at that position. Another to consider who's not on this list, who's not part of the 15, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston was a sneaky late round pick for a lot of people looking for a QB2. He did have, a pretty outstanding fourth quarter in week 1, and he does have some really good weapons to work with as well. Jameis Winston is a dark horse top 10 fantasy quarterback for me. He has been all off season. Moving on to the tight ends, I have 3. We're starting with Tyler Conklin. Tyler Conklin has proven in the past with the Vikings that he can be a usable tight end in 12-team leagues, possibly 10-team leagues. I don't know if I would pick him up in a 10-team league, but in a 12-team league, he's usable. We thought there'd be more of a split between Conklin and Uzomah. There wasn't. It was all Conklin. Will that continue? Who knows? But Tyler Conklin, for now, is the top tight end on the wire, in my opinion, going into week 2 because he has a history of success. And then O.J. Howard, 2 touchdowns out of nowhere. I didn't even realize. I realized the Buffalo cut him. I didn't realize he's on Houston. I missed that transaction. And 2 touchdowns. I mean, maybe he's going to be tight end 1 in Houston. Maybe it's not going to be Brevin Jordan. That's great. O.J. Howard maybe finally is in a place where his talent can be utilized. Because I thought O.J. Howard coming out of college was one of the best tight end prospects I'd ever seen. Like he's a great blocker and he's a great pass catcher. But Tampa he never really caught on in Tampa because Cameron Brate never went away, and then Gronk showed up, so he completely lost favor in Toronto. And Tampa, not even close to the same region of the world there, region of the country, not even the same country. Got a little confused, maybe because the Toronto Raptors played in Tampa Bay last year, so as the Tampa Raptors, not last year, but 2 years ago during the COVID season. Yeah, but O.J. Howard, could he be a reliable tight end? Probably not. It's kind of like Houston's always that team that has that random tight end who scores a touchdown or 2, but doesn't do anything else. And it used to be Darren Fells. Looks like O.J. Howard's going to fill that role now. Could he be someone worth picking up in 10-team leagues as a backup tight end? Possibly, as a bye-week fill-in, possibly. But he's making this list because he had a huge week 1, and because I do believe that he is a talented tight end, a talented player in a bad offense. So he could see more work. The problem is he didn't see a whole lot of work in week 1, and it seems kind of fluky. But he's worth the speculative ad. And then Hayden Hurst of the Bengals didn't have a huge week 1, but Hayden Hurst was one of those guys who I saw as a small breakout candidate at the tight end position, and in an offense with Joe Burrow is gonna help him. We saw C.J. Uzomah have a couple of very relevant fantasy weeks last year. Hayden Hurst, I think, is more talented than C.J. Uzomah, so Hayden Hurst could be a slightly more relevant fantasy tight end. And T. Higgins is also hurt this week. He could miss this week. That could elevate Hayden Hurst on the pecking order. So Hayden Hurst is a guy who I'm looking at here at week 2 if I'm needing a tight end. Moving on to the wide receivers, I have 7 for you. Actually, it was 16 pickups for the week, not 15. I apologize for that. But I kind of combined 2 because they play the same position for the same team, and there's an injury. So we're going to talk about them both. So I'm counting them as like one. It's kind of as 1.5. But anyways, wide receivers, 7 for you. Wide receivers always the deepest in the draft. Wide receivers always the deepest on the waiver wire. That's why I don't prioritize wide receivers on draft day, because they are so prevalent everywhere. You can always find wide receivers. But starting with wide receiver 1 up for the week, Jarvis Landry. I don't know why Jarvis Landry was getting so disrespected in drafts. I am guilty of that. I didn't even consider him in any drafts because for some reason I just saw Michael Thomas being a target hog, and I know the Saints went out and traded up to get Chris Olave. So I was like, Jarvis Landry is going to be 3rd in that pecking order. He's probably not going to be weekly irrelevant week to week, right? So that was my thinking. But we're obviously stupid. Jarvis Landry is very talented. Jarvis Landry has been very fantasy relevant everywhere he's been. I don't know why we didn't think that was going to continue in New Orleans, in a pass-happy offense. Sean Payton may not be the coach there anymore, but it's still a Sean Payton offense. We were silly. Jarvis Landry should be your number 1 wide receiver priority because he has a vast history of success, and there's no reason that won't continue as long as he stays healthy. And then Devin DuVernay, maybe it's not Rashad Bateman's time in Baltimore. Maybe it's Devin DuVernay. Devin DuVernay is more of a slot guy, short yardage guy. That seems to be the kind of guys Lamar Jackson prefers. So Devin DuVernay could be wide receiver 1 in Baltimore. That puts him on at the top of your list as well. Julio Jones and Russell Gage, because of the Chris Godwin injury, they're both going to see an increase in volume and opportunity. I'm leaning more towards Julio Jones just because I know that Julio Jones is a future Hall of Famer. But Russell Gage is the guy who's more likely to actually fill the slot role that Chris Godwin filled. So Russell Gage's opportunity could expand as well. I think it's likely that both become relevant in week 2 at least. And it's really just pick your poison. Maybe you could go pick up both of them. That wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. And Robbie Anderson seems to have established a good rapport with Baker Mayfield, despite the fact that he didn't originally want to even play with Baker Mayfield. But Robbie Anderson has proven in the past that even when he has a decent quarterback throwing him the ball, he can be a fantasy relevant wide receiver. And so I believe Baker Mayfield is a decent to above average NFL quarterback. So Robbie Anderson should be fantasy relevant. He's another guy who I didn't even consider in drafts because honestly, I wanted no part of Carolina this year. Not any part of it. So I didn't really go touch anybody on that team, even including Christian McCaffrey. So I think in all the drafts I did, even when I had the number 2 pick, I didn't go for McCaffrey. Number 2 pick, in my opinion, was the worst spot to draft from this year. I wanted no part of Christian McCaffrey. But Robbie Anderson had a big week 1. There's no reason to think that won't continue. He has been a very Deshaun Jackson-esque player Deshaun Jackson used to be a frustrating guy because he would have a huge week 1 and then he would do nothing the rest of the year. Robbie Anderson, I think, is more a Deshaun Jackson-esque in the type of style of play. He's the kind of guy who's going to catch, 3, 4, 5 balls for over 100 yards. But I think he's more consistent than Deshaun Jackson ever was. So Robbie Anderson is a guy who's never going to see a whole lot of volume, but he's going to get you a touchdown or 100 yards plus per week. Very useful. Curtis Samuel looks healthy for the Commanders. We knew Curtis Samuel was a good weapon. I liked Curtis Samuel in last year's drafts. He just never got healthy. And with the addition of Jahan Dotson in the first round this year, I kind of thought Curtis Samuel would not necessarily fall out of favor. He just was going to fall down the pecking order. And that still may be the case, but week 1 showed us that Carson Wentz can make 3 wide receivers in Washington relevant. So Curtis Samuel is a guy who could see a really high target volume because of he's going to be more of the slot gadget guy. And so, and the tight end's not really a relevant position in Washington this year, in my opinion. So Curtis Samuel can fill a lot of the gaps that the tight end would usually fill there. I think Curtis Samuel is going to be a high floor guy, kind of like a Jacoby Myers in New England. He's going to see a lot of targets, catch a lot of balls. May not produce really high with those targets and that volume, but week 1 showed us that he is healthy, so we can trust him moving forward. And then Corey Davis, the forgotten man in the wide receiver core for the Jets, with them drafting Garrett Wilson, with Elijah Moore being pegged for a breakout, we all forgot about Corey Davis. But Corey Davis is a pretty talented, pretty legitimate wide receiver himself, and he may not be there. The consistency may not be there week to week because I don't think the Jets' offense is that good. Neither Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson is that good of a quarterback to sustain 3 fantasy relevant wide receivers. But Elijah Moore was a bit of a disappointment in week 1. Garrett Wilson was a bit of a pleasant surprise, and Corey Davis was a pleasant surprise. Who knows who it'll be week to week? It'll probably be Elijah Moore more often than not, but Corey Davis is definitely a guy who we all kind of forgot about and disrespected, and I'm gonna hype him up a little bit here heading into week 2 because he deserves it. He's talented enough that he could be useful depth for anybody who needs a wide receiver and misses out on some of the bigger names. Moving on to the running backs, I got 5 for you, starting with Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson is my top running back addition for week 2 because Elijah Mitchell is out, and Elijah Mitchell is going to be out for an extended period of time. That doesn't mean Jeff Wilson is going to see a lot of work because it looks like Deebo Samuel is back to being the Deebo of last year, where he's going to get all the high leverage touches out of the backfield. Jeff Wilson technically is going to elevate to running back 1 on the roster, and any running back 1 on any team is very fantasy relevant in any league. So Jeff Wilson should be your priority running back target. And then Darrell Henderson, another guy who we all completely disrespected, which I didn't understand personally. I thought Darrell Henderson Darrell Henderson, every time he's been given an opportunity, he's looked really good. I like the way he runs. I feel like we all kind of just assumed that Cam Akers was just going to come in week 1 and be 100% healthy and just dominate right from the get. But we forgot that Darrell Henderson is a pretty talented running back himself in a pretty talented offense. We forgot that Cam Akers didn't look super great in the playoffs last year, and maybe he wasn't going to be 100% healthy. So maybe it's going to be the Darrell Henderson show for another week. And again, I like Darrell Henderson's style. I like the way he runs. He reminds me a little bit of a Dalvin Cook light. And so Darrell Henderson's someone who maybe is a little higher on my running back priority list than a lot of other people's. But I like Darrell Henderson in week 2 against a team that they should probably blow out, which should make him run heavy. We'll see if Cam Akers has a more productive day. We have to hope Cam Akers has a more productive day, right? Because he was awful. A lot of teams drafted him as their starting as running back 2, possibly running back 1, and he was pathetic. So we need more of Cam Akers, but we can't completely disregard Darrell Henderson either, not yet. And I don't think Darrell Henderson's ever going to go away, not this season. Kenyon Drake looks like the guy to own in Baltimore until J.K. Dobbins is healthy. I'm not a Kenyon Drake believer. I think Kenyon Drake sucks. Kenyon Drake has always sucked. Kenyon Drake's always going to suck. But in a run-heavy offense like Baltimore, and with the pass-catching capabilities that Kenyon Drake has, he will be a useful option for you in this Baltimore offense as long as J.K. Dobbins is hurt. Khalil Herbert, I was telling you guys, is the most talented running back Chicago has, and he got the most carries last week. That doesn't bode well for David Montgomery owners, including myself, who did draft David Montgomery against my best wishes. I don't know why I did that stupid shit. But now I'm stuck with him. Hopefully, the reason I think I like David Montgomery because I think he's good in the goal line. I think he's going to be the guy who gets the touchdowns, which is going to keep him fantasy relevant. But I would not be surprised if Khalil Herbert out-touches him every single week for the season because Khalil Herbert is the more talented running back, in my opinion. So Khalil Herbert is someone, especially if you have David Montgomery, you need to be adding Khalil Herbert to handcuff him. And then Rex Burkhead for the Texans, he got the most touches out of the backfield. Rex Burkhead is not going away. Rex Burkhead is very useful in the passing game. Rex Burkhead is just a useful weapon no matter what. He's running the ball, he's catching the ball. He's useful. Houston needs all the useful weapons they can get because their offense is not great, even though it looked okay. I think Brandon Cooks is really good. Davis Mills is better than we think. I think Lovie Smith's a better head coach than we give him respect for. Houston does this every year, though. I think they've won week 1 3 straight years, and then they ended up sucking the rest of the year. So I won't be surprised if that happens again this year. Even though they didn't win, they tied. Although I know they had a big lead and kind of blew it. But a loss, a tie is better than a loss. So good on the Texans. And that could come back down later on in the year. Who knows if they're 4-12-1. That could help them. It's going to help them in the standings. So I think Lovie Smith's going to keep them competitive. I think Rex Burkhead's going to be useful all year, no matter how much more work Dameon Pierce ends up getting throughout the year, which I would suspect is going to be more and more each week. But Burkhead, again, for the fourth time, I know I'm repeating myself, beating a dead horse here, is going to be a useful option for the Texans, so he can be a useful option for depth for your team as well. Now, a little over 20 minutes. I think I went about 15 seconds longer in that segment than I wanted to, but real quickly, let's talk about some notes from week one. I think I've got 11 players to talk about here, good and bad. Cole Kmet, I'm just going to start with, it's going to go in the order that I wrote them down as I was, following along on Sunday. So Cole Kmet, I still think Cole Kmet is going to have a breakout year, and I was definitely anticipating a little bit more than a goose egg for Cole Kmet week one, but I think the weather was a huge factor, and I think the fact that the 49ers had a really good coverage linebacker on him, and they kind of keyed on him in week one, which I don't think is going to change. I think Cole Kmet is going to have a lot of the kind of TJ Hawkinson treatment that he got in Detroit last year. So there is definitely some risks in owning Cole Kmet, but I do think Cole Kmet is still going to be a guy who's going to catch a lot more touchdown passes than he did last year for the Bears, which is going to keep him relevant. And I do still think he's going to be the number 2 guy in that passing offense. So he's going to be a useful tight end. And I still hope for a much better week in week 2. Maybe it's just because I have Cole Kmet so much, and I kind of am relying on Cole Kmet that I'm being optimistic still, but he can't get much worse. And my team did just fine without him catching a single pass. So he can only get better from here. And I think against the Packers on, is it Sunday night, Monday night, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not watching it. For the 2 teams I hate, I'm not watching that game. Especially if Chris Collinsworth is calling it. I'm not watching it. And so, which he was awful on Sunday night. He should have taken the day off. It's not like his voice is so damn important that we can't live without it for a football game. He needs to take care of himself. He's getting older. So, again, that's just part of the reason I can't stand him is because he's such an elitist. He thinks he's better than everybody else. He's always talking down to the audience like he's in on the joke, and we're not, and he's not going to let us in on it. He's just a snob. I can't stand him. He should have taken the day off. We definitely could have had some fill-in. It's not like he's the president of the United States or a firefighter or something who is essential. He's very non-essential to life. We could have definitely lived without it. Michael Thomas looked good. Michael Thomas looked healthy. Michael Thomas is who we thought Michael Thomas was, so he's going to prove again to be a huge steal in the draft. Kyler Murray looked terrible. Cardinals offense looked terrible. Cliff Kingsbury is now squarely on the hot seat. There's a lot of bets that if it's not Mike McCarthy, who's the first coach fired this year, it's going to be Cliff Kingsbury. My money's on Kingsbury because I think he's terrible. He should have never got that job. And Kyler Murray looks like he does need to study. That study clause probably should have stayed in his contract. Justin Herbert looked fantastic, but is he going to throw a touchdown pass this year to anybody that we've ever heard of? Gerald Everett caught one, Xander Horvath caught one, DeAndre Carter caught one. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, no Joshua Palmer, right? That was the breakout name that everyone was talking about. No Jalen Guyton. No. Is Gerald Everett the tight end one in LA? I think they signed him this offseason to be the tight end one, but I think, isn't Jared Cook still there? Or even the other guy, Donald Parham. Donald Parham's been a guy who's always been catching touchdown passes for Justin Herbert, but I don't remember if he caught one or not, but he needs to start throwing some touchdown passes to guys that we've heard of or guys that we're going to use, and not these fourth string wide receivers that are out there. That's the only thing I wanted to say about that. I just thought it was odd that he had such a good day and didn't utilize anybody that we actually care about. Rashad Bateman, Devin DuVernay, kind of already talked about them. Devin DuVernay. Rashad Bateman is someone I really liked coming out of college. I was a real big fan of him in Minnesota. I hated his landing spot in Baltimore, but he does have a huge opportunity to be the wide receiver 1 for Baltimore this year. Can he be it? I don't know if he's exactly the kind of wide receiver that Lamar Jackson loves. I think Devin DuVernay is more of the wide receiver Lamar Jackson is going to love. So that's why I'm kind of leaning more, especially after week 1. Devin DuVernay as the wide receiver to own in Baltimore. Rashad Bateman not. I still think Bateman has too much talent, has too much opportunity to not be owned in fantasy. And he did score a touchdown, but he only had 2 catches, and one of them was a touchdown. So there's some volatility there. Rashad Bateman is someone I'm watching, and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing so far with the trends. But luckily, I didn't buy too much stock in Rashad Bateman just because I just, as long as he's in Baltimore, I'm probably never going to love him as a fantasy option. Or as long as Lamar Jackson is throwing him the ball in Baltimore, or Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator in Baltimore, I'm not going to love him as a fantasy option. But I do have him. I did start him, so the touchdown was nice. It did help me. But I don't know how much. He's probably really only going to be a bye week fill-in for me for the rest of the week. The only reason I started him this week was because I didn't trust that Chris Godwin was going to be super useful, and he didn't produce, and he's hurt again. Chris Godwin was about to hit the injured list, so maybe I will be relying on Bateman, but I'm probably going to pick up someone else, someone I feel less volatile about. And Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's going to win the third straight MVP. His wide receivers are terrible. Even if Allen Lazard comes back, his wide receivers are terrible. I still think Aaron Rodgers somehow is going to figure out how to be a top 10, top 12 quarterback, still be useful to have. He's probably going to throw the ball to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon a lot more. And his wide receivers, as Christian Watson, Romeo Dubes get more experience, they're going to get a little bit better. He's going to trust them more. As Robert Tonyan gets more healthy, he's going to trust him more. So Aaron Rodgers Packers' offense is going to get better as the season progresses. But I did not as a Vikings fan, I loved what I saw from the Packers offense. But as a fantasy analyst, I did not like what I saw from the Packers passing offense. And the Packers definitely made the wrong decision. They should have paid Devontae Adams a couple of years ago instead of kept franchising him and pissing him off, and then not giving Aaron Rodgers a new $50 million contract when he's 39 years old, and you have an elite wide receiver to pay, right? Doesn't that seem stupid? That seems stupid to me. But I don't work in the football industry, right? So maybe I don't know anything. But it seems to me like they made the wrong choice there. A couple other notes. I kind of want to keep this at a half hour under, so I got a couple minutes. Miles Sanders and the Eagles running backs, all 3 of them scored a touchdown. And the funny thing is, Miles Sanders, I don't think, if I remember correctly, he didn't score a touchdown all last year, right? And so that's why his draft price was so low. But he got that out of the way. He got off that schneid, got his first touchdown of the season in week 1. So now he's already scored more touchdowns than he did all of last year. So now, he can play and relax a little bit, right? So I still think Miles Sanders is the guy to own in that backfield, but I don't think any of them are legitimate NFL starting running backs. But Miles Sanders probably will get a lot of work because Philly is a very run-heavy offense. DeAndre Swift, outstanding week for DeAndre Swift. I think he was running back 1 last week, right? So definitely living up to the hype coming into the season. Definitely looking like he's going to push for top 5 running back status. So those of us who got him in the second round, or in my case, when I did draft him in the second round, he was my running back 2. So I'm getting running back 1 numbers at running back 2 price. That's what we call value. And Cordero Patterson, the rumors of I have such a problem saying his name, Cordero Patterson. His demise were unfounded. He played week 1 the same way he played last season. I see no reason why he can't continue it because Arthur Smith seems to trust him. He seems to be Arthur Smith's top weapon in Atlanta. So Arthur Smith, as long as he's the coach in Atlanta, which who knows how much longer it's going to be. I'm not saying he's going to get fired during the season, but I don't think he's going to. If they have another terrible season, he's not going to see a 4th season in Atlanta. So as long as Arthur Smith is there, he's going to find a way to make Cordell Patterson fantasy relevant, barring injury. And then lastly, Saquon Barkley looked like Saquon Barkley that we know and love from 3 years ago, wherever it was when he was healthy. Looks like a running back 1. We got him at running back 3, running back 2. We got him in the 3rd, 4th round, right? That's value. If he's a running back 1, that's value. Hopefully he can stay healthy this year because the Giants really need him, fantasy owners really need him, and he really needs it for his the legacy of his career. Because running backs have such a short shelf life, and the more they get hurt, the shorter their shelf life gets. And so he's already lost 2 prime years in what will probably be an 8 or 9 year career. If he gets hurt again, Giants are probably going to have to move on. They're going to have to find somebody else. So I like what I saw from Saquon in week 1, and I see no reason not to trust Saquon moving forward. All right, that's it. I think I did a pretty good job. 31 minutes. I mean, I wanted to keep it under a half hour. 31 minutes is fine. My video yesterday about baseball was around 30 minutes, and it had not nearly as much fantasy relevant information in that video. So I'm happy with myself. I'm happy. So we'll probably continue this experiment into week 2. See how that goes. Tomorrow I will start the spikes and yikes at quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, running back position. I'm talking about tomorrow I'm talking defense. I always do defenses first because I want to get, because those that stream defenses, I want you to get the defense information first on Wednesday, because I give you the waiver wire video today. We don't talk defenses because I don't want you to burn a waiver claim on defense special teams. But Wednesday, when I put my video out, that's when I want you to go out and get the defense that you're going to stream for the week, and then use your waiver claims on skill position, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or whatever, I do spikes and yikes for quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, running back. So that's the way I like to do it. This way I'm probably going to continue it. So I'll do my defense special team video tomorrow, and then possibly quarterbacks or tight ends tomorrow as well. I like to save. I don't know. I probably should do wide receivers and running backs first, right? Because this is kind of the most important. We'll see. All I know for sure is I'm going to bring you defense special teams information for week 2 tomorrow. So tune in for that. Good luck with your waiver claims tonight. Hope you get everybody you want tomorrow, and tomorrow morning. And let's have fun first and foremost with this. But obviously we want to win, right? Because that's why we play. You play to win the game. So that was a pretty poor Herm Edwards impersonation, but I'm about as good a college football coach as he is. So peace, love, and nacho fries. Good luck. Best wishes. Namaste. Thanks for watching.